Good morning.
Good morning, sweet wife.
Yes.
My lovely Karen.
This is unexpected. Didn't quite realize we were going to do this today, but here we are.
Well, we are going to do it today, and we have been listening to our fans, and I noticed after we did the last episode on the Wrecking Crew, which gave a lot of good background information, they said, we want more of that.
Right.
So they'd like to know more interesting stuff that maybe they didn't know before.
Right.
So.
And it's not just going to be that. It's
No.
going to be all of what Ronnie Records is about. But we're going to do as many informative ones as we can.
Yeah. So, in light of that, we I was thinking about studios because my son Randy and I were interested in studios.
Music?
Well, I got the background music for the studio we're going to talk about. So, anyway, just quickly. Randy and I were talking one day about studios because he's a good friend of the drummer from Pablo Cruz, and who recorded up in Marin County, and there's a studio there, and we talked about going there. We got all excited about it. And so today I was thinking about, I just came up with the idea about, I always heard about Muscle Shoals. It's a studio in Alabama, and I wasn't quite sure about it and why it was such a special studio. So we found a documentary on it, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in fact very cool because they supposedly had this sound that came out of something. And what really got to me was the fact that there's some spiritual thing about the river.
The Tennessee River.
Tennessee River, very close to Muscle Shoals, was just barely a town out in the middle of the boonies.
And a lot of the musicians that played there said you cannot get this sound anyplace else. You can't get it in California, you can't get it in New York. It is only right here. So, and when some of the people that have lived there, and I think they were native Indians, they said that the river talks.
Yeah, sings.
Sings. The river sings. So,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and this Native American who left there actually originally a long time ago walked back to Muscle Shoals.
And it took her 5 years.
5 years to get there. She just walked from the reservation that she was put on because she knew that river meant something. So anyway. Muscle Shoals, we are going to play like the first song is Steal Away by Jimmy Hughes. It's a song you'll probably all recognize that was recorded there.
And there is a different sound. We kind of heard that during the documentary. It was like the longer we listened, I'm going, yeah, that is kind of different.
Well, they did talk about some kind of, they focused a lot on the drums and something else, I don't remember. But it was also, what I know, who's the guy that started the first studio? He called it Fame Studios. That stood for
Rick Hall.
Rick Hall.
Right.
And as we learned in the video, that he was such a perfectionist. He would, how many takes it would take, but he knew, he had an ear that said, that's the take, and it could be the fifth one or the 100th one.
Right, it didn't make any difference.
Yeah,
and he had a great ear for that. And so.
Anyway, this is Steal Away by Jimmy Hughes. That was one of the earlier ones, became a big hit. Rick partnered with one of the founders of Atlanta Records, Wexler,
yes,
right?
Right,
and when he partnered with him, he certainly got a lot of new people recording there, and they just took off.
Yeah.
In his first studio called Fame, and there was a lot of great music recorded there. Aretha Franklin rekindled her career. Not rekindled, actually it gave her the sound she needed.
Because she wasn't going anywhere. I don't remember who she was with, but when she came to Rick Hall, her career just exploded.
Yeah. They got the sound that she wanted, and they had the backup band that were called the
Swampers.
Swampers. So they had the right band, they had the right sound, they had this guy that was a perfectionist.
And also Etta James.
Oh, Etta James.
James
Right,
also,
she came
yes.
there. Just a lot of big time people rekindled their career and started the career. One of the big timers that came there was Bob Seger, which most people know. This is one of my favorites from Bob Seger.
Just take those old records on the shelf.
Yes, yes. What I have here, and I'm not going to read them all, but there's hundreds of people that had their own band, had been, up on stage making money, and they went there because they heard this sound and they said, I got to get there. One of them was Keith Richards. He goes, I got to get there. I have got to get there. So the Rolling Stones did go there and they did record some music.
I've got
there.
2 of their songs I'm going to show you later.
Yes.
That they recorded there. Brown Sugar's one of them.
That is the number one when, people like to make lists.
Yeah.
Well, they made a list and the top 20 people that sang there,
Yeah.
Brown Sugar was number one.
Well, Keith Richards was on, Mick Jagger they had also on this documentary.
Yes.
And they went on and on about this great studio.
Yeah. And this started back in 1959, 1960.
Right.
So then it continued, and I think it continued until, I think there's still groups.
Well,
I'm
I
not
think,
sure. I'm not sure about
no,
that.
they are. In fact, I didn't realize that. Even Paul Anka went there, and I would say rekindled his career with a couple of great songs.
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney, yes. So I'm going to play the next one. It's a favorite song of mine, maybe not a biggie, was R.B. Greaves, who did one of my favorite songs, Take a Letter, Maria.
Yeah.
I just love this song, and I tell you why. It's like
Okay.
he found his wife in bed with his best friend.
As I got home, about 10:30.
Some of the other people, Paul Simon.
Paul Simon,
Paul
yeah.
Simon was there. I don't know who Arthur Alexander is, but you better move on.
He was a bellhop that was also a singer. They collaborated with him, brought him in, and he did a couple of big
Yeah,
songs.
He did. He did.
But this song is Take a Letter, Maria, address it to my wife, tell her I'm not coming home.
Yes.
I gotta start a new life.
Yeah. And back in the 60s, that was a questionable time in our, United States history.
Right.
But there was nothing. These fellas got together and their main goal was music. And they
Right.
bonded and they just had a great collaboration in just about everything that they did.
Well, what's wonderful about it, here's this small town, this small area, very country,
400 people or something.
swampy, and so these swampers were different players. They were pretty good when they
Yeah.
got together under Rick's command
Yeah.
and influence. They did some great stuff. Now here's the sad part: after Rick had
Built it
these
up.
great things coming and happening, the Swampers decided they wanted to have their own studio. So they came in and they were scared to talk to Rick. And Rick, of course, was heartbroken. He was surprised, shocked. He felt pretty betrayed. And so for a while, both studios now, the Muscle Shoals studio and Rick's Fame studio, kind of faltered, but they both found ways back. I think Rick
Came back with
by
a
going to
vengeance.
Capitol Records or something,
There was a
partnering
deal.
with them, and he had a lot of big people coming, so he did great.
Yeah.
And the Muscle Shoals people, they actually did great too.
They did. They all did.
That
very
studio
good. And
band.
You'll see that their relationship never faltered. I mean,
Yeah.
they still had a very close relationship.
They did.
It was just different
Yeah,
because of being competitors.
well, and the fact that they both did well, I think that helped.
That helped a lot.
Yeah.
All out of Alabama.
So when we talked about the Wrecking Crew last episode,
Yes.
this actually, the Swampers were another studio band that people loved.
Yes.
So they went to record there in Muscle Shoals with them because of the band and their sound and that sound in that area. And so they all did great. Here is when you talked about Paul Simon.
Yes.
Here's one of his songs that he recorded there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kodachrome,
Kodachrome,
big
right.
hit.
There's another one. Kodachrome and what was?
I faltered here about
I know,
that.
I
I know
think
there
that's
was
all right.
another big
Yeah.
song he did there.
Yeah.
I'm assuming an album came out of that.
Sure. They did record a lot of albums.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
did, not just singles. They
Right.
recorded albums.
right. So
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
Paul Simon all by himself. Remember, it was Simon and Garfunkel did big. They broke up, and both careers of Simon and Garfunkel took off.
Yeah.
Mostly, Paul Simon did extremely well. This was a big hit in the 70s.
So were, Boss Skaggs, Rod Stewart, Otis Redding, Bob Dylan was even there. Lou Rawls, Paul Simon, Kodachrome, which is what we're listening to. The Osmonds,
Yeah, the
Paul
Osmond.
McCartney, he was
Yeah.
there. And of course, the Rolling Stones were there. They did a couple of different ones.
Another biggie was Wilson Pickett,
Yes,
and
Wilson Pickett.
he did this next song, "Land of a Thousand Dances."
Right, and there's another one that he did also, which was number 3 on this list of 20. I'll let you start.
1, 2, 3.
The "Land of a Thousand," and he goes through all these dances
Yes,
that were
right.
popular at the time.
And Mustang Sally was
Yeah.
number 3 on whoever compiled this list of
Right.
different
Wilson
artists
Pickett
that
did
came out.
Mustang
Yes,
Sally.
Sally, yes. Yeah. It was just another eye-opener for me because I don't know that much about music. He's the music man. But it's just another going, what? Where is this? Alabama? Oh my gosh. So,
Yeah. And people talked about going to Muscle Shoals. They were tired of being in the big studios in New York and LA.
and traveling.
They love the idea of going to this little town, this whole experience in this nowhere place in Alabama, and just the feel of it,
The Swampers did tour a little bit, but when they came back home, they said, I don't want to tour anymore.
Right.
I just want to stay here in my hometown and play the music, and then, I'll go home at night.
Yeah.
Each
So-
one has a story of how they got to Rick Hall and what Rick Hall created. Yeah.
So when we focus on some other studios, I'm going to bring up American Studios in Memphis, where Elvis went, and I'm going to say he kind of rekindled his career there. One of his big hits at that studio was Kentucky Rain. So we're going to focus on some other studios, and again, it's all about the sound. And the other aspect I want to talk about later on are the engineers at these studios that played around with how to get
And
specific sound.
again, they didn't have written music at all.
No.
They did
No.
not sit on, someone just didn't show, I can't remember the name of it, when you write down your music. And they just started playing it. They all had an ear for it, and they all just kind of collaborated. And when it wasn't right, they knew it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And they would just kind of stop. And then Rick would come in, okay, this is what we're going to do this time. So,
He was a real taskmaster.
yeah, he was a perfectionist. Worse than me.
A lot of performers were taken back when they had to do the 20th take on a song. But after a while, they realized that Rick understood and knew that was the perfect take.
Yeah.
So that was great.
There is
Well-
just a little bit of tidbit information.
I'm going to pause this because this is the last two songs of
Oh, okay.
Rolling Stones. So
So,
I'll let you
Rick Hall
give us more
did produce
information.
Etta James, Tell Mama album. Okay. This was Etta James' biggest hit. The album also has been praised as one of the greatest albums of rock and roll. I know. I'm just telling you what my notes say. I'm just.
I would
telling you.
never say Etta James was a rock and roller. She was a blues.
She was blues. Yes, she
Yeah,
was. You know, Mustang Sally, Land of a Thousand Dances, which we talked about already.
And played.
Right. Mac Davis.
Mac Davis, he's another unsung hero to me.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize how gifted Mac Davis was in movies and in writing songs and playing songs. So, yeah.
Now, the Dixie Chicks, I don't know if they're still together. I think they broke
No,
up.
I think they might be back.
But they also played there
Right.
in 2000.
Yeah.
Yes, they were there.
Yeah, they were, for as
George
far as I
Strait.
know, George Strait, a lot of the country people
Right.
were still recording there
Travis
in
Tritt.
Muscle Shoals right up through 2016, 17.
Yeah, this says Billy Ray Cyrus was there too.
Yeah.
So,
So Muscle Shoals was very popular with a lot of people, and I hope that we gave you a new perspective that says, you know, not only was the Wrecking
Cher.
Crew and Cher was studio bands, but also the studios were special places where people found that sound that they
yeah,
wanted.
and they walked into a studio and it didn't make any difference who you are, where you came from, your background, nothing. They all just came together for the music.
Right. This is Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones. What a different sound. Listen to this a little bit, okay? Let's take a little
Oh, you
time.
don't want me to talk?
I want you to listen. The fact that this is the Rolling Stones.
Well, yeah, they weren't always, all over the chart.
Well, they didn't sound like
No.
people with that rock sound. This is kind of a pretty song.
It is.
That,
And I didn't develop an appreciation for the Rolling Stones
I know,
until
because you were a Beatles
lately.
fan.
No, it's been the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I didn't like them back in the day when they competed against the Beatles, but I sure appreciate them now. And I appreciate the fact that they're still playing now. Maybe not all the original members. Keith Richards is still there.
Well,
But,
when you listen to Keith Richards talk about this, you really get an appreciation for his sense about music. And this song,
just the fact that he's still alive.
yeah. The first time I heard this song, I said, "Who's singing this beautiful,
Almost sounds
haunting,
like a ballad.
haunting song?"
Right.
Yeah, it is a ballad.
Yeah. So, it's pretty cool. Yeah. A lot of good information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up with their big hit
Okay.
that was recorded there in Muscle Shoals, "Brown Sugar."
Another Rolling Stones. Everybody knows.
Now this
it.
sounds-
As soon as you hear it,
This sounds more like the Rolling Stones to me.
Yep. But it was in Alabama.
A funny story, I think, a little funny story. I want to talk about this Brown Sugar was, I was in San Francisco with my cousins, Patrick and Gloria, and Chris and Betty Flanagan. And we were walking along, and I think we were talking about, or heard somewhere, Brown Sugar. And Betty turned to me and said, "You don't know this song, Ron. You're such a music buff. You don't know this song." And I said, "Well, it kind of faded out for a while in the 60s and the Rolling Stones." And she looked at me and she scoffed. But I got appreciation of, especially the song that was recorded in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, by the Rolling Stones, who were from England.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah. And of course I have my notes.
No,
It's because I don't know.
No, we decided next time that you and your notes is a good part of the Ronnie Record Show because
So that Karen doesn't look like she
I
has
don't,
no
I don't,
idea
do,
what she's
I don't
talking
do
about.
the research now. But
Anyway, if you have time, watch the documentary. It was on YouTube.
no, it was on Peacock.
Peacock.
Yeah. Muscle Shoals.
It was worth
Great-
watching. And
Great background.
Then you get all of the background of Rick Hall coming up, sleeping on straw because they were so poor.
Oh, his background.
Oh, man.
He lived in a 2-room shack with mother and father.
His
out in
left
the
him.
middle of nowhere, outside of Muscle
No
Shoals.
running water.
No running
bathroom
water, no
facilities,
bathroom.
Nothing.
And he came out of that determined to do something with
To
his
be
life.
somebody.
And he somehow, I didn't
I don't
get how
know
he got into
there.
music,
Yeah, I don't know either.
but he
Watch it. It's
Watch
a good
it.
one.
anyway.
All right. Another good show, Mr. Music Man.
Okay,
Good
the
job.
Ronnie Record Show. Make sure you subscribe, and
Hit the bell.
we'll bring you more exciting episodes
Yeah.
about music.
Anything about music.
Yep, love it. Rock
love you.
out. Let's rock out of here.
I love you.
I love you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Hope you enjoy this episode.
I bet they did.
I hope you do. All right. Brown sugar.